Outlander Book Club, Book 1, Chapter 4 Breakdown. We're on to Chapter 4 of Outlander Book 1. This is the shortest chapter of the book so far, coming in at a few seconds over the 30-minute mark on Audible. However, it has some important moments for Claire's journey so far in moving forward. Like Chapter 3, this chapter was used heavily during the show. We jump to Episode 2 for this chapter to be developed, introducing us to Leok and some of the people there. Unlike Chapter 3, I felt like there was a little more foreshadowing of things to come. It's more in the story that Jamie tells Claire when she notices his scars for the first time. That's something I'll get into during the foreshadowing breakdown section. And of course, the chapter is important on its own. Up to this point in the books, we'd really only got to know Claire and her thoughts of others around her. This was the first time we heard someone's story through their words, even though we're hearing it through Claire. It just so happens to be our male lead, so it seems fitting that he's the first character to share his own story. Let's get into the breakdown of the chapter. Are you ready? We immediately catch up with Claire after the ride through the woods to Leok. While she doesn't know the place by sight, she does know it by names. During the chapter, she tells us that the place is now a ruin. Now she gets to see the castle full of life, and we immediately get the sense that there is a lot going on. Not only does Claire describe the people walking to the castle, but we get to know her thoughts about the courtyard and her opinions of Mrs. Fitzgibbons, Mrs. Fitz, who is quickly introduced. This then leads us to Claire tending to Jamie's shoulder, which starts the conversation about the scars and Black Jack Randall. Something I found odd the first time reading, and still now, is how much Jamie immediately shares about himself. He doesn't give away full names and he catches himself before telling her the place name Wally Brock, but he trusts her with his story. There's certainly foreshadowing throughout this story, something I'll get onto soon. As for Claire, she quickly gets used to the time period. While there are times she slips up on the terms, she corrects herself and thinks about the types of herbs and items she'll need to help tend to Jamie's shoulder. I do think her time with Uncle Lamb set her up for the 18th century. After all, she would have likely used some of these items when traveling with him. One thing she does is avoid telling Jamie that she knows Black Jack Randall. She knows that sharing her connection to him would definitely get her in trouble. Jamie would possibly tell Dougal that she is an English spy. Plus, she knows that even though she's not the most welcomed person at Castle Leok, she's been treated far better already than she would have been with the English. A final element that stood out to me was her thoughts about Frank. She hints that she wasn't a virgin when she married Frank, something that I don't remember from the first time reading. I love finding these little elements in subsequent reads, which is why rereading the Outlander books doesn't get dull. But I do have to pay close attention, otherwise I could just picture the show rather than the words on the page. The foreshadowing that I spotted was mostly in Jamie's story. He tells Claire all about Black Jack Randall and the British Army demanding things from farms. We know in later books that the British Army will turn up with demands. This is just getting us ready for that. This also connects back to the things that Reverend Wakefield had said about Randall. In fact, there's also the reminder that the complaints against Randall go nowhere. I was surprised that this wasn't something Claire brought up in her internal thoughts. However, there's also foreshadowing for Jenny's personality. She's not afraid to fight back. She will do what it takes to protect her family. This is something we certainly see in later chapters, and even in later books. Many women would have backed off with men threatening them, but Jamie describes Jenny as feisty and strong. Jamie's story also foreshadows his feelings for Claire. Why would he tell her so much in such a short space of time? Claire considers the intimacy of traveling together, but it's clear that Jamie feels safe with Claire in the way that Claire feels somewhat safe with him. He also makes it clear that he'll protect her, no matter what, hinting that he has already fallen in love with her. Finally, it's about the medicine. Claire finds a way to use the medicine of the day to treat wounds, something that she eventually does as a way to help the people of the time, and it's clear that her actions here are what lead to Colum deciding that she can be the new healer at Castle Leok. As I mentioned, this chapter is one that is used almost word for word during the TV series. There are just a few elements that are changed slightly. There's more of a cheer when the men get back to Castle Leoch. I do think this is mostly because the show has a chance to tell the story more from the outside view. During the books, we see everything Claire wants to tell us, which can limit the view a little. It's actually one of the things that I've always disliked about first-person POV novels. Mrs. Fitz on the show is just as she seems in the novels. She's cheery, helpful, and kind. She wants to welcome Claire, but she is also suspicious of her. That's not all too surprising, but it helps to create a friendship of sorts between the two. I'm glad to see the story that Jamie told didn't change too much. Instead of just being told the story on the show, we're physically shown it through a scene. This is important for the TV series, but I didn't feel like anything was really missing from the story in the book. The show did well at transforming all of this, even if on the show I also felt like Jamie gave away too much too soon.